Okay, can you hear me? Yeah, I think we're live.
We are live and recording and loading onto YouTube.
Perfect. Okay, I'm glad we got that figured out. Okay. Should we
Just
get
waiting
started
on.
or should we wait a couple minutes?
I'm just waiting on YouTube to load.
Oh, sure.
1 minute.
Hi, for those of you. Hi there. We can see you. Just going to start in a couple minutes.
Okay, I just got notification that we are live on YouTube, so why don't we go ahead and get started? Thanks to everybody for joining us today. My name is Harrison Schmitt, and I'm the Programs Director at Pacific Whale Foundation. Our mission is to protect the ocean through science and education and to inspire environmental stewardship. I'm really excited that you all were able to carve some time out of your day to join us this morning so that we're able to talk about an enormously important subject, and that is celebrating women in science, talking about some of the challenges that women face and what all of us can do to overcome some of those barriers. As many of you may know, Aspires you, if you would like to learn more, if you would like to get involved, working together a short time, but I can't tell you how impressed I've been with issues revolving around women in science, or as we will discuss, the lack.
East coast of Canada. It's just about the most easterly point. I had a lot of, we talked about that last week, what we all wanted to be when we, ultimately, when I was in high school, I had a really great bike. So, and I was always a kid who liked the outdoors. I loved when I went to university, initially third year of university. I took out research techniques, do data collection, do your own little project, and pursuing that and learning new things. And then I got lots of different jobs. I worked for the university. I was a research assistant, other nonprofits, traveled internationally, and I worked in South Africa for Pacific Whale Foundation in Hawaii. And I thought, oh my gosh, Hawaii, what a great place to be. And the position was doing research in Australia and Hawaii and on whales and dolphins. And I thought, what a dream job. Probably won't get it, but doesn't hurt to apply. You never know what will happen. So I applied for the job and here I am.
That is an incredible journey. Was there one moment throughout all of that where you knew without a shadow of a doubt that you wanted to be a scientist?
That's a good question. Um, I don't think there's one particular moment that stood out. It was really a series of small moments and a series of meeting other scientists and learning about science is so broad. There's so many things you can study, and there's so many types of different scientists, and just learning all the different people and learning about the work they were doing was always so fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Really, I think those field courses that I did at Memorial University were a big turning point for me, certainly. We had great supervisors and professors there, and they gave us a lot of independence and freedom to actually do research for the first time. So that was something that I really appreciated and enjoyed.
I've heard you say throughout you telling your story that there were people along the way who really inspired you, from your high school biology teacher to some professors in college. And I wondered if you could share. One thing I've learned is that one of the most important things we can do to encourage more young girls to enter the science fields is mentorship. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about, maybe share a story of one or two mentors that you've had that have been particularly inspiring for you and really helped you to pursue a career in this field.
Yes, I think it's so important to have a mentor. And then when you're in a position to be a mentor, to mentor young people as well, you're so right. It made a big difference for me. Um, my high school teacher was really great. She taught me about biology and just I had no idea that you could study that in university. So she
Mhm.
really encouraged me to pursue science in that way. So she was great. My parents were always really supportive and encouraging and always kept saying, yes, you can do this. Supported me, pushed me a little bit outside my comfort zone, which I needed from time to time. And my parents would say, no, go and do this, go. You can
Mhm.
go and do this. Everything else will be fine. And that was really important. For me, really important mentor is her name is Catherine Hood. I don't know if you're watching Catherine, but hi. Some of you from back home might know that name. She taught me a field course that I took about the biology of marine mammals. So that was the first taste I had really of marine mammal science. And what I found so inspiring about her is she did science as a second career, really. So she had children and had a family and had a previous career. And then later in life, later in adulthood, she went to school and went to graduate school and obtained her PhD, at an older age, and then was supervising other students herself. And that's how I met her. So she was an older woman who was doing this for the first time. And I thought that was so inspirational and so amazing that it's never too late. And so she had a lot of wisdom to share with me and a lot of life experience. And she was a fantastic, supportive person to have in my life. And I really just loved her story of don't ever give up. It's never too late. There's always things you can do if that's your passion and if that's really what you want to achieve.
Mhm.
So she was great, and she's still. The last time I saw her was 2017 when we went to the Marine Mammal Science Conference in Halifax. She was there, and I got to connect with her. It was really great. So yeah, I really thought her story was so amazing, and a few of the people who have been that mentor role for me have been women who went through their life and raised their family and had their children and did something and then returned to science later in life.
Mhm.
I've met a few women who have done that, and that's really it's an option, right? I mean, it's really inspirational that they can do that and that they don't think, oh, I have to put that on hold because I want to have a family. They make it happen.
Mhm. And when you were at university, were there a lot of other women in your class, or was it primarily men?
When I took my undergraduate degree, I would say it was about half and half.
Hmm.
About half and half, I think. And that was in the early 2000s. So I think the ratio has probably skewed a little more female to male right now.
Hmm.
But what's noticeable is that all the professors were men,
Hmm.
or at least the vast majority of them were men.
Hmm.
Most of the people teaching the courses or people doing research at the institutions tended to be older gentlemen.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the numbers are pretty shocking. So according to the American Association of University Women, over the past 50 years, women have made pretty impressive gains in some traditionally male fields like business, law, and medicine, but have been much slower in the STEM fields, slower science, technology, engineering, and math. In fact, and I know, Steph, this is a statistic that you are well aware of, less than 30% of the world's researchers are women. What do you think contributes to those low numbers?
Well, it's certainly not that females aren't capable of doing science, and
Hmm.
it's certainly not that they're not interested in doing science. I think there's just a lot of institutional and social change that needs to happen.
Hmm.
So, what we see is that there are lots of young girls interested in science. There are lots of students in high school and university who are pursuing biology degrees or science degrees, things like that.
Hmm.
But they don't quite make it to the real leadership positions. They don't quite make it to the PI roles.
Hmm.
Um,
And what's
and
a
so
PI?
sorry, a principal investigator. So a
Hmm.
person who's leading the research study is
Hmm.
usually a PI. And we see that is very skewed. You see a lot of the students, interns, graduate students will be women, but a lot of the researchers are men. And so that's been described by some researchers as something called the leaky pipeline.
Hmm.
So there are lots of women being funneled at the beginning of the pipeline, being funneled into the sciences, but there's all these holes along your journey. There's
Hmm.
all these holes where you encounter some kind of roadblock and you quit.
Hmm.
And so that's sort of considered the leaks in the pipeline towards success or towards becoming a scientist.
Hmm.
So, for example, you might be a student who gets harassed by a supervisor, or a student who gets harassed by your supervisor who's supposed to be your mentor. And maybe you can't deal with that and you drop out of your program. So,
Hmm.
that's one of the holes in the pipeline. Or maybe you get through your degree and you are applying to graduate school, but women aren't so um, confident really at selling themselves the way men are. We often just don't have that self confidence. And so maybe your graduate school applications aren't as competitive. Um, there's some really interesting science that shows when you review grant applications and job applications, CVs, things like that, you can actually tell the gender of who wrote that application based upon the language they're using,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
women just don't talk about ourselves the same way that men do.
Hmm. Yes, as I've taken on more management positions, I've learned that how I used to write job announcements needed to change because I was using a lot of language that was fairly aggressive, and I didn't even realize it. So I had
Mm,
to start to use some different verbiage. And I want to dig into this in more depth, but just for our for those who are participating in this conversation, we would love to take your questions. If we can figure out the technical aspects of it, so please submit your questions, and once we get through the conversation, we'd love to run through some of them. So please feel free to submit those, and we'd love to have an interactive conversation with everybody. So the picture you're painting is backed up by some pretty compelling research. I saw that according to a study by RTI International and the Heising Simons Foundation, they surveyed women working in the scientific field. They found that the vast majority of respondents, 91%, admitted that gender discrimination remains a career obstacle. And 100%, I've never seen a survey in my life where there has been 100% of respondents agreed that self doubt and a lack of confidence stand in their way. 88% of respondents share that gender bias serves as an obstacle to women's career trajectories, specifically at the postdoctoral stage. And I'm just wondering what changes you think university programs could make to improve the learning environment for women who are earning science degrees.
whew. Um, yeah, I think there are some achievable tasks for academia. You know, academia is sometimes considered to be a bit of a toxic environment, and so universities really have to take harassment more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're getting close to that. You know, this Me Too thing that has surfaced recently has been really great at bringing this issue of sexual harassment to the forefront. And that's very common in universities as well. I know a lot of people who have been harassed by professors or their supervisors, and universities often kind of brush that aside or cover that up. So I think being really clear on harassment policies and having there be consequences to those actions
Mm-hmm.
would be huge. um, being aware of that implicit bias that we all have when you're hiring for professor jobs who are going to be teaching these young impressionable students, being aware of the bias that we have when we're staffing positions, and making sure that female students have those role models present in their undergraduate degree. That's really important as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think training opportunities, training on, we get, when you do university education, you're really not getting a lot of job skills training in the sciences. You get education, you get knowledge, but having more practical job skills training for women, I think, would be really important as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, the research on this topic supports everything that you've been saying. Um, there's also been a call for more independent funding opportunities for women. You mentioned that you can tell if a woman has submitted an application, or I would submit a grant application. There's some implicit bias there. And also the implementation of family-friendly policies. You mentioned that a lot of your mentors left the field, had a family, and then came back. And so some obviously it's very difficult for um, working mothers to continue in the science field as things currently are. Research also suggests, Steph, that the more people hear about the achievements of women and girls in math and science, the harder it is for them to believe that this is something that only men can do. And I'm just wondering if you have some suggestions of ways that we and Pacific Whale Foundation in particular can help to tell the story of women in science and really elevate the achievements that have already taken place.
Wow, that's that's okay. So first, I want to circle back to the family issue. You're so right. I didn't get to mention it, but when I talked about the leaky pipeline,
Mm-hmm.
having a family is a huge hole in that pipeline. A lot of women are having a family. Your childbearing years are right in usually your career building years as well, and a lot of people are faced with tough decisions, and that disproportionately affects women, those types of decisions, and having to deal with childcare or taking a leave of absence from your job. If you take maternity leave, for example, that can affect you really significantly in the research world. We apply for grants, 9 months or a year in advance of doing that work, and then our research, spans years of data collection before we get the results we want to publish. So taking even 3 months off or 6 months off from maternity leave can really significantly set you back in your career. And
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced that myself. I took a very short maternity leave, but I felt like it really set me back for at least a year or two compared to my male colleagues who didn't have that gap in their work. And so having family-friendly policies is really important. Having supportive employers or supportive educational institutions, that's incredibly important. I read an article in Nature magazine that said nearly half of female scientists in the US leave full-time science after they have their first child. So we're losing a lot of women that way. Um, and it doesn't need to be that way. There's lots of ways that employers can be supportive. Conferences can find childcare alternatives. So yeah, I really wanted to address the issue of having a family and having childcare. I think it's possible to do both, but it's certainly very challenging and something to think about if you're a woman and you're entering the sciences. And then to get back to your question about how do we amplify other women, gosh, that's such a good question. I think we need to support each other. Women need to support each other, but men need to support women as well. This is a people problem, so everybody needs to work together to address this. Pacific Whale Foundation, I'm really happy to be employed with this organization because we are very supportive of women in sciences, but women in general. We have a woman who's our executive director, and she's very good at supporting me and instituting some family friendly policies that have affected me directly. we're also supporting other women researchers. We have Barbara and Elsa who are doing the blue whale project in Chile. We have Christina who's doing her humpback whale project in Ecuador. And I know that Pacific Whale Foundation specifically has made a conscious effort to support women in the sciences and women who are otherwise struggling to find funding for their work. It's really important that we tell their story and show young girls this is what you can do and this is what you can achieve.
So you mentioned young girls, great segue. And I wanted to ask you about that. So as I think most people know, we have a really incredible education program that Robin leads that really seeks to inspire young children on whale and dolphin issues at an early age and to try to give them that spark, that opportunity that they wouldn't normally have through our Kiki Whale Watches and through bringing a big inflatable whale into schoolrooms. If our listeners haven't seen it yet, there's this phenomenal video that Robin just posted onto our Facebook page, Pacific Whale Foundation's Facebook page the other day, that outlines all the incredible things that they do to help inspire children to have a real passion for whales and dolphins in the ocean. And I was reading that one of the things that would, in particular, that would help young girls have more confidence in this area is helping them to develop their spatial skills. So specifically, construction, 3D computer games, sketches, shop, mechanics. That's been shown to improve their confidence in this field. Did you have that experience when you were growing up, or can you think of other ways that we can help to inspire young girls at an early age and give them that confidence?
That's such a good point, and that's a really good question. When I was a young girl, I will say that I mentioned earlier, my parents are always really supportive and I think gave me a great opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad was a real tinkerer. He's always a bit of a handyman and he's always doing little construction projects around our house. And I was his little helper. So I would always be walking around with a hammer or a level and helping him in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I never felt that and I always had access to those types of tools. You're talking about spatial skills and building
Mm-hmm.
that skill set. So I think a little bit of a tinkerer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's really important for parents raising children to not impose gender bias upon their children. You know, I have a daughter, I have a 3-year-old, and when you shop for kids' clothing, the girls' t-shirt will say, I'm pretty, I'm a princess. And the boys' t-shirt will say, I can do anything. I can be an astronaut. And like we're imposing that upon our children at age 3. It's incredible that we're already thinking about those things. So as parents, we can do a really important job of teaching our children that they can do anything. You know, if they want to play with the tools, let them play with the tools. If they want to learn about math, encourage that. um, yeah, I think just don't impose limits on people. Let them be what they want to be. Give them access to everything, and then see what shapes and develops.
Excellent. So I want to go to some of our audience questions. We've got quite a few. But before we do, let's elevate women in science and their achievements. I wondered if you could talk about 2 achievements that you have had in science that you are most proud of.
Ooh, pressure. Um, you know that I hate talking about myself. So okay, I feel the pressure with that, but thank you for the opportunity.
Sure.
So just, well, one of the projects that I'm working on right now that I'm incredibly proud of is our swim with whales research in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
So swimming with whales as a form of tourism is on the rise in a lot of parts of the world. And unfortunately, there's not been a whole lot of scientific research looking at how does that activity affect whales, or is there potential detriment to the whales?
Mm-hmm.
So for the last 2 years, I've been leading a study in Hervey Bay, Australia, to look at the behavioral change on whales when swimmers are in the water and see potentially if there's an energetic consequence to that activity. So that work is in progress, not finished yet. but it's so important to be done. There's not a lot of research on that around the world. So I'm really proud of what we're doing there. And we've just submitted a paper last week about our spinner dolphin research in Hawaii. So in Hawaii, for those of you who don't know, spinner dolphins are subject to enormous tourism pressure here during the daytime hours. Spinner dolphins go offshore and hunt at night. And during the day, they come in close to shore in bays and protected areas, and they rest or sleep during the day. But unfortunately, it's very predictable where to find them during the day resting. And so a lot of people are driving boats nearby them or swimming with them. And that's some great research has been done showing that that's having a really detrimental effect on their energetics and not getting enough sleep. It's like the equivalent of someone coming in and waking you up every hour while you're sleeping through the night. Mm-hmm. Not good. So what the federal government, NOAA Fisheries, the management agency, they're looking at adding some enhanced protective measures for spinner dolphins in Hawaii to help deal with this issue. But there's just not enough research right now to guide what that protective measure should be. So they're weighing closing some bays to vessel traffic during the sleeping hours, and they're weighing putting in an approach distance for vessels, but they just don't have a lot of data right now to guide that decision. So that's the work that we've been doing over the past couple of years in Hawaii. We've been mapping spinner dolphin distribution, looking at where are they, do they rest in particular areas, do they move, interchange between the different islands of Maui Nui, and we're recommending some action based upon our research findings, so we'll help to guide that policy. So I'm really proud of that work that we've been doing, and thank you for letting me talk about it.
Yeah, I am so excited about your spinner dolphin research, and what excites me the most about it is that this is applied, that the information that you're collecting, which is new, is being fed directly into federal management issues to inform better management of the species. So I just think that is fantastic, and I'm so excited to see the results when they come out. Love to go to some of our audience questions. First, hi, I have a 12-year-old girl that has always loved dolphins. What is it like to research them? What is your work like each day?
That's a really good question. And if you want to dive some more into that, tune in again tomorrow, because myself and my colleague Jens are just going to do an open ask us anything about being a researcher. So tune in for that again, and we'll show some pictures from the field.
And what time is that at, Steph?
It's at 1 o'clock Hawaii time. So you can check that for your local time zone. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow, April 16th, 1 o'clock. But I'll give you a quick answer. What's it like to research dolphins? It's amazing. It's so fun. Someone said to me last year, you have every little girl's dream job. And I think I do. And I really love what I do, and I appreciate the opportunity to do it. Researching them, for me, it's about answering questions. I have a lot of curiosity about the world, and I like to answer questions. So we spend some time in the field, but probably not as much time as people imagine. I think when people picture a marine biologist, they picture us out on the boat every single day. That's not really the case. We usually go out in the field about 1 day a week. And collect data. We survey around in our boat, just drive around in our boat looking for dolphins. When we see some dolphins, we'll follow them, do something called a focal follow, and we'll collect data. So we'll take pictures with our cameras. Those pictures can be used to ID the individual dolphins that we're looking at. What we're doing right now is we'll fly our drone overhead the dolphins and collect some aerial photos. Those can be actually used to measure the length and width of the animal from the overhead photo, and we're using that to measure their body condition or how healthy that animal is. So we spend enough time with them to collect all the data we need, and then we'll leave and look for something else. But the bulk of research doesn't happen on the boat, it happens on a computer. So our research work continues on during this pandemic. The researchers are working remotely, and we have a computer and we have heaps of data. So the research continues. Um, Doing science does involve a very good fundamental understanding of mathematics and statistics. A lot of our work involves crunching numbers, organizing data sets, and then trying to tease out information from the data. So it's really important if you want to do science that you get a good math background and statistics background. That's some advice. Um, and then we spend a lot of time writing as well. So once you have your results, we spend time writing them up. So I always enjoyed reading and writing when I was growing up. That was a hobby of mine. And someone said to me once, well, why do you care about writing if you're going to be a scientist? But it's actually an incredibly important skill to develop because we spend a lot of time sharing our work with people through written materials.
It's a really good segue to our next audience question. So I'm going to quote, I'm a 16-year-old girl who is a junior in high school, and I'm extremely interested in marine biology. I was wondering what classes you decided to take, internship or volunteer opportunities that you did in high school or college to get you on the right path.
Okay, great question. Um, a lot of people ask me, what was your path? I want to do exactly what you did to get there. And there is no path that I can lay out for you to take. Everyone's journey is so different. But I will tell you what I did. I never said no to an opportunity, and I did a lot of different things to get to where I am. So I didn't focus in on marine mammals right away. I really was just interested in science and marine biology more generally. So I volunteered in labs that were doing plankton counts. I worked in laboratories that were doing fisheries management, fisheries science, worked with some aquaculture related projects. Um, and I think those all, for me, developed different skill sets that ended up being very important later in my career. So some people get very focused on, I want to study whales and dolphins, um, and looking for only opportunities that involve studying whales or dolphins. But really, science, the main scientific principles are so applicable to whatever you want to study. So I think just develop your skills as a scientist. If you work in fisheries or work in oceanography, you're going to develop some amazing interdisciplinary skill sets that will really help you if you then do want to do marine mammal work. So never say no to an opportunity. You never know where it will lead. Get yourself out there, introduce yourself to people and ask if you can help them, ask if you can volunteer in someone's research lab. Most people are always looking for volunteers to help them. Do take some internships if you get the opportunity in college to do some internships. Pacific Whale Foundation has a really great internship program. We give people lots of opportunity to learn about data collection in the field, work on our catalogs in the office, and learn about photo ID. A lot of our former interns are doing really great work right now. And like I said earlier, make sure that you are working on your quantitative skill sets. So learn about math, learn about statistics, learn a programming language. Those are really important in the sciences right now. And a piece of advice I always give to people is look at job advertisements for the type of job you want to do and look at what they're asking for and what you don't have, and then try to find opportunities to develop those skills. So if you see a job that requires knowing how to program in R, take a course or ask someone who knows that to teach you how. Make yourself marketable and competitive in that field.
Great. Go to the next question. Steph, do you think the publish or perish idea and the culture of little to no emotional support or work-life balance in some parts of science disproportionately affects women. We talked a little bit about the work-life
Mhm.
balance and the family-friendly support policies, but I wonder if you could talk specifically about this publish or perish culture.
Absolutely. So this is anonymous. I don't know who wrote it, but good question. Thank you for the question. So for those of you who don't know, publish or perish is this notion in the science that if you're not publishing work and getting your name out there and getting your work out there, you will perish or you won't be marketable. You won't be able to find a job. Um, and it is very much the case in my experience. Um, and work-life balance, there's a bit of toxic culture in academia of just having to work yourself to death if you want to be successful, and you can never be off if you want to be a researcher. That definitely persists still today. I don't know the answer to it really, but I think mentoring, finding women or men who can mentor you and support you in your career, finding good people to surround yourself with is really important. The partners and collaborators that I'm working with right now are so fantastic, so amazing, very good work-life balances, and they're very supportive of um, mental health, and very reasonable in their expectations of what we can accomplish as researchers. So find those good people and surround yourself with them. But does it disproportionately affect women? Of course, because the way our society is set up right now is that women are doing the bulk of the child caring. Women are doing the bulk of managing the household at home. And so, as I said earlier, it's a people problem. So men and women together have to work to resolve those issues. Hopefully, you can have a supportive partner, supportive family members who help, supportive employer. That all helps, and just find yourself a good community of people to help you.
Great. Another question, I'm going to paraphrase here a little bit. So Pac Whale has a dolphin watch trip that specifically targets the viewing of spinner dolphins. How does PWF work to promote the responsible watching of dolphins? And do Pac Whale sightings, so when the eco tours are doing their trips, does the data they collect contribute to your research? Or how do they participate in your research?
Yeah. So I'll answer the first bit. Pac Whale Eco Adventures is a subsidiary of Pacific Whale Foundation. They do have dolphin watching trips, but they do not specifically target spinner dolphins. It's any dolphin viewing, and we're very clear on those trips that we cannot guarantee dolphins to any passenger. I think you have about a 50-50 shot of actually seeing a dolphin on that trip. And we're very clear about these are wild animals. It's not SeaWorld. You never know where and when we'll see them, and just a chance to appreciate them and view them in the wild. But our company, Pac Whale Eco Adventures, is one of two, I believe, companies on Maui that is certified by a program called Dolphin Smart. Dolphin Smart is a program that is run by NOAA Fisheries. It started on the east coast of the US, down around Florida, where there's some, I won't get into it, but there's other issues with harassment of dolphins in that part of the world. So they introduced this um, guidelines and viewing program called Dolphin Smart. So it's voluntary, and Pac Whale has chosen to be part of that program, and we choose to follow those guidelines. In addition to that, we've developed our own set of guidelines called Be Dolphin Wise, and we promote those at international meetings like the International Whaling Commission's Scientific Committee. We try to share those with other researchers and refine them based upon research on dolphins. We're very keen on doing responsible ecotourism and demonstrating to people that there's a balance between tourism and the educational messaging or the conservation work that we do. And you're right that there's some data being collected on those boats. So we have an app called Whale and Dolphin Tracker. And the naturalists on those boats collect data about what they're encountering and where and when. And that does inform our research. We've published a couple of papers using the data set collected from Whale and Dolphin Tracker. And we have a student right now, I think she's watching, a student right now who's working through a manuscript looking at dolphin distribution using that data set that's collected from the tour boats.
All right, last question. Stephanie, so great to hear your story. What do you see yourself doing later in life? Do you think you will always do research, or do you see a shift or change in a later chapter?
Yeah, never say never, I guess. But I really love what I do. I think I'm very privileged to be in the position that I am right now. So I want to do it as long as I can. I love being able to make a difference. I'm really an environmentalist and a conservationist at heart. So that's the reason that I do science, is to help to protect those species and help to make a difference in the world, a positive difference in the world. Hope that I'm doing that. And yeah, I think I never, you never know what will happen in the world, but I do think that I plan to do research in science for as long as I possibly can. I do have a very supportive family, and I do have a very supportive employer right now, and a great network of partners that I'm working with. So I'm very lucky that way. For the young people, the 12 and 16-year-old who sent in questions, if you guys want to chat some more, feel free to reach out to me after this is over. I really think it's important to pay it forward. I've gotten some great advice in the past from my mentors and had that support in my life. And so I think it's really important to do it for others. And so, yeah, I'm always available to chat, or if you want to ask me questions, or if you want to come and intern for us, be in touch with us.
Great. Steph, thank you so much for your time and for your insights. And thanks so much to all of our guests for participating and for your excellent questions. We are the Pacific Whale Foundation. We are continuing to work through these unsettled times, and we are reliant on your support. So if what you heard today inspires you, if you would like to be a part of our efforts and would like to support the work of Steph and the other incredible women who lead our research work both here in Maui and internationally, please join us. Visit us at pacificwhale.org. We're currently conducting a $5 fundraiser. And as you just heard over the past 45 minutes, your financial support will be put to excellent use. So thank you all for joining us. And Steph, I will see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.